Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Women of Dance. Once again, I'm your host, Sharonne Vinokurov, and I'm so excited to take you on another journey from one of the amazing women in our dance industry. Just a little recap of what we've had so far. This is episode 21. Like, my show is old enough to be a person who can drink. What is this? Um, it's been such a great experience. Last week's guest was Shani, and she was awesome. She even gave me an exclusive tidbit about her new job as an associate choreographer with On Your Feet. Make sure you go and check out that episode where she talked about that and so much other incredible information. Today's guest is a dear friend of mine. She is the definition of a boss babe. She runs Ferocity Dance Company. They have won many titles. She's done it all, and I really cannot wait for you all to get to know her a little bit better. So, without further ado, let me please bring on today's guest, Kat Arias. Hello, gorgeous.
Hi, Sharon. How are you?
I'm good, sweetie. How are you?
I'm good. Hanging in here.
I'm really grateful that you took the time to meet with us. I know you always have a lot on your plate, running your own business and everything, but I thought it was super important for our viewers to get to know you a little bit better. So, thank you so much for taking the time to join me and to share your story.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's an honor.
So, let's take it back to the beginning, right? Let's give everyone a little background on Kat, right? So, tell us about your upbringing and tell us how your dance life began.
I grew up in Venezuela until I was 6, and then my parents brought me over to the States. Dancing isn't really a thing in my family, actually, on either side. So I just liked music, and like one of the first like cassettes for anyone that's that old that I ever heard in my life was Juan Luis Guerra. I always loved the music, but just dancing wasn't really a thing in my family. So I would say I got into it late, and because of Michael Jackson and like Britney Spears. I
Nice,
love, yeah, loved music videos way back in the day when MTV used to actually play them all.
right?
And so, I was that kid like learning the moves from the routines and like doing them in my bedroom. And then in high school, I got a chance to audition for our school's like dance team. And I made it one year and then I never made it again after. And I was like devastated. Um,
Oh my God.
for me, that was like my whole life. I was like, oh my God, this is what I want. And so that was like kind of hard, but it was a lot of fun. And then I would say the first time I ever had like formal instruction was when I was 15 for my quinceañera. And I didn't even know, like my parents wanted to do a quinceañera for me back home. And it was like, you don't know how to dance. We should figure that out before you go back to Venezuela and like dance in front of people. And actually, it was one of the local instructors. His dad was my teacher. It was Patricia's dad was my instructor, and he was the first person that he pulled my parents aside, and he was like, "Listen, she needs to dance." He's like, every time I teach her something and I turn around, she's like trying to learn the leads part just because she can. And so it was like the first time that anyone actually, other than myself, kind of believed in me as far as dancing goes. Um,
Mm.
but like as far as any actual like dancing like of what builds me up now, I started way late. I think I was 22.
Oh, wow.
I was a receptionist at a ballroom studio, and ballroom was like my thing. I saw the movie with J Lo and Richard Gere.
Oh, shall
It
we
was,
dance?
yeah. So I didn't realize that I liked that dancing like so much until that movie. And like we come out of the movie and it has like a happy ending. And I was like bawling my eyes out. And my mom's like looking at me like I'm crazy. And she was like, "What's wrong with you?" And I was like, "I want to dance." And like I just felt like it wasn't for me. And this is just kind of like I've been overweight most of my life. So this has just kind of been like a theme that like anytime I wanted to do something pretty or like, I used to want to do gymnastics and stuff. This was always kind of like things that were said to me. So I was just like, oh, like it's never gonna happen. But then I got this like part-time job at a ballroom studio, and I was like, wow. But like with these amazing dancers, my insecurity just like completely spiked, and it took me a year to get the courage to take a group class. And I got them for
Wow.
free. I couldn't get myself to do it. I would just hide behind my little desk and I would just watch these people because they were like amazing. So I didn't realize that my shifts were always working when like competitive people were there. So like the really high level amateur dancers with their teachers. And I was like, oh my God. And so like I was like, oh my God, I want to do this so bad, but like there's no way. Like these people obviously started when they were little. And then they took me to my first ballroom competition. And I went and I was like hooked. So like the next day, I had already noticed a teacher that I really liked his style, and like I don't even know how I found his number, but I called him the next day and I was like, I want lessons, and he was like,
Love it.
okay, yeah. And so then like it's kind of like it. I tried a couple of different styles, and at first I was like, I'm gonna learn all the dances, and then like I quickly realized that that's like 20 dances, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, maybe not. Like my pockets don't want to do that. And so I ended up kind of like staying with international Latin. And my
Mm-hmm.
teacher is he's still my coach now. His name is Jenya Bartashevich, and he owns the Towson Dance Studio. But back then, you know, we were here and we were like young and like just figuring stuff out. But yeah, like ballroom, I always say it's my first love. Yes,
There's
that's
you and Janya.
yep, that's him.
You made
He's
the perfect segue for me. You brought him up, and I'm like, boom, there's
there you
video
go.
number one. Let's get right to it.
Yeah, so like I always credit him a lot for everything that I know because I'm not classically trained. I didn't take those classes. I started really, really late in life. And a lot of what I learned, probably like most of it at this point came from him. He taught me like not just how to dance, but how to conceptualize dance. And watching him choreograph was always crazy. Like I always told him that watching him choreograph a piece like during our lessons looked like Mozart. He just looked like a musician, like trying to figure stuff out. And that's a lot of how I do things too. Like I'll have things in my head and I'm like I have to try to figure out how to translate what's in my head to actual movement. So I credit a lot to him. I think that if I hadn't found him, I don't think that I would be doing any of this today.
I love that you referred to his choreography process as Mozart, like, because it's true. There's something very special about the choreographic process,
Yes,
right?
it's very different.
It's very different. It's not, and magic can happen, really, if you let yourself connect to the music and
Yes,
allow yourself to be free,
yes, for
you
sure.
know? Um, I want to take it back a little bit, just because we went through your upbringing so fast. Not everybody that watches the show is a Latina. So I personally, for example, I didn't know about quinces before I joined the scene,
Uh,
and that people do like group performances. So can you talk about that a little bit? Go back and talk about that for our viewers so they have a better understanding of how that really works.
Yeah, so quinces is kind of like the equivalent to a sweet 16, I guess, in American culture, like the rite of passage, I guess, for like a girl to go from like a girl to like start transitioning to be a woman. Um, we were never like really big on that, so I was really surprised when they wanted to do one for me, and I was like, okay, why not? But yeah, like you usually have like a court and then like a special dance, and they do like a waltz and stuff. Mind you, these are all things that I knew nothing about when my parents asked me to do one. And I had no court because we went home to Venezuela. So
Oh
only
wow.
one of my friends went with me because that's like a long trip. We were like 15 for like someone to allow their child to go like completely overseas to like a country in like the middle of the mountains because where I live was like in the middle of the rainforest, and so
Oh
it
wow.
was kind of like a hard sell. But like my best friend at the time went with me. Um, and I didn't know. I was not told of anything. So then we get there, and I'm just expected, like, all of a sudden, these dancers show up all around me, and I was like, "What's happening?" So apparently, my mother had hired like a professional dancers to dance with me, and I had no idea what was happening. So
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
it was both. It was very terrifying. But I had no idea what was happening. But usually, right, you would have picked your own court and you worked on like the dances all together and stuff. So that's how it usually would work. But there's a lot of like traditions and stuff. So like, I don't know like if every country is different, but like we did a tradition of like putting my shoes on. Like my dad put my shoes on for me, and that's like your parents helping you. And like I had to dance with like every like person that wanted to dance with me. There was like this line, things that I wish I'd been prepared for before they happened. I didn't know any of this stuff. Um, but yeah, it was like it's a lot of fun. It's a big deal. I think it's gotten a lot more popular because of TV shows in the last like 5 to 7 years. There's like
Mhm.
shows that are specifically centered around quinceañeras and stuff, and they can be really, really simple or they can be just as extravagant as weddings. Mine was a
Yes.
pretty big party. I think the only extravagant thing we did is that we had a dress like custom made for me. No, nothing crazy. It was a white dress, but I was like, "Look, mom, this is like the closest you'll get to a wedding picture for me. So enjoy that."
That's too funny. Do you remember the style of dance you guys did for your quince?
Yeah, so it was waltz.
Nice.
Yeah, so my parents and the lessons that I took here with Patricio's dad, I learned like salsa, bachata, merengue, just all the basics so that I'd be able to like hang with the people at the party.
Yeah.
But like the actual waltz was the actual dance that we did for like the
Nice.
when I got there.
Very nice. So then technically you already had that ballroom seed planted
Yeah, a
before.
tiny one
A
in a
tiny one.
terrifying manner.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I mean, quinces are definitely quite the experience. I definitely remember being asked to choreograph one before I fully understood what it was. But they just, a group came in and said, we need a routine. And I said, sure. And then I remember I went to my first quince and I was like, she's dressed like a bride. And
Yeah,
there's like a whole thing. And this is amazing. Like, this is so cool. So I definitely love that. And I love that you shared that with us because I don't think anyone's really talked about that experience. And I
yeah,
think
it's
that's such
a
a
lot of
cool
fun.
tradition.
Yes, it's a
Really
really
very
nice
cool.
tradition. Yeah.
So let's get back to the ballroom. We're going to go back to where you were, right? Um, I got to ask because personally, like me, I remember growing up and watching PBS and watching all the ballroom competitions and seeing the beautiful costumes and all that. What was your favorite part about being in the ballroom world?
Oh man, for me it's the dancing and the costumes. I love shiny stuff.
Mhm.
I think just generally I have pretty low self-esteem, and so there's two things that make me feel good about myself, and that's usually now makeup and shiny costumes. And so I just think that even in dancing, I tell my students all the time that dance is like a really interesting hobby because it brings out all sorts of insecurities for you. Whether it's, and it's completely by default, it just kind of happens through the process. But there's something about putting on like a costume that makes you just change and makes you completely different. And for me, I think, costumes are much more than just something that you just kind of throw on your body. Like they tell the story as well, but like they make you feel amazing. So I think you just dance your best. So the costumes for sure, when I walked into that competition, I was just like, oh
I know. I mean, you said you stuck with the international Latin, and I understand why, but I will say, like, my always appeal to the smooth dances was those gorgeous long gowns.
oh yeah,
I mean, just to watch them twirl around the
yes,
floor when they're doing the Viennese waltz and all that, it was just stunning. I didn't realize back then that I'd have such an obsession with rhinestones. And
oh yeah.
but then
My
you get a little
favorite,
older and you see the
yeah.
Latin costumes, which are a little sexier and a little bit, and they're like, oh no, I want this.
Yes, but my favorite like standard. So I did the international style. So I did like standard. My
Mhm.
favorite standard dance is quick step. I
Really?
love quick step. Yes, oh my god. But standard and I don't get along. So I tried. I even competed in it once, and I was like, oh man, sucks. But like we don't get along. These dances with I.
That's so neat. This is a tango.
This is a tango. This was my first showcase ever in
Was it
ballroom.
really?
Yeah,
To be
I
fair,
actually
everyone that's
I was
watching.
so nervous that for this whole thing I blacked out. Like we started the show and the next thing I knew it was the end and I was like, "Oh my god, did I do it?" Because I have no idea. I was like terrified.
I feel like we've all had that. For those that are watching, I apologize that this was not the first video. As you all know, I love to do my research on our guests, and I knew about Kat's ballroom days, but I couldn't find video about Kat's ballroom days. So I had her upload some stuff for me so you could see it. But because she uploaded it all on the same date, I didn't have the timeline of what came first. So I just guessed.
Sorry.
It's totally good. At least, we get to see all of it. For me personally, from the standard dances, tango was always my favorite
Yeah,
because
for
I
me,
also dabbled in ballroom. So I loved tango. Waltz was a lot of fun, but I think from the standards, tango was definitely my favorite dance for
nice.
sure. Did you do any Argentine tango or only this type?
I did a little bit with Patricio's dad because that was his specialty. So I learned like just the very like basic, and then that was the dance that he saw me where I also figured out the leads basic because he went to like, talk to somebody. So I really liked it, but I think Argentine tango is such like a an intense style, and it's like so intricate all on its own that I feel like I would need time just to focus on like that one style. So it was really nice. I really enjoyed it.
I agree. Argentine tango, a lot of people don't realize just how hard it actually is.
It's super hard.
It is super hard. 'Cause it's not as structured as a lot of other dances. There's so much about just the feel, and that's so hard. It's so hard to teach that,
Yes,
you know? So
definitely. You can't dance that without passion, I feel like.
absolutely, absolutely. Now this is a jive of yours. It seems to be a little skit going on in the beginning.
Yeah, so by this time, this is my coach. By this time, I think I'd been dancing 2 years. I think, yeah, 1.5 or 2 years. And he was my best friend at this point. And we would just have all these inside jokes. So like this makes no sense at all in the beginning, but like um from that Adam Sandler movie, The Wedding Singer, there was that shirt relax. And he used
Yes.
to always tell me this in our lessons. So then I was like, for our showcase, you're gonna wear this shirt. And so
Oh
then
my
that's
God,
how we
I
made
love
the
that.
shirt. Yeah, but it's a lot of fun. I mean, he's an amazing coach, but it's definitely um something else to dance with like your best friend.
Oh, for sure. There's nothing like dancing with someone that you have that type of connection with, for sure.
For
It makes it
sure.
a whole other experience.
Yes,
And I think it's great that you had such a coach that had such a wonderful effect on you, because it's definitely a great coach can be life-changing for us,
for sure.
you
Yeah.
know? So you did the ballroom world for how long?
I mean, I still like do it like on and off. I'm trying to get back to it this year because I feel like the more I stay away from it, the more sad I get. So
Oh,
I'm trying to get back to it. But I did like a showcase, I think, with him in 2015 and 2016. So just kind of like whenever I have like a little bit of extra time, I'll be like, I want to do a show. Let's go. Like, and we'll like put something together. But I would like to get back to like more regular, like maybe start with some group classes and see if I can like compete again. Very amateur in ballroom for sure. But it's just a lot of fun. I just want to do it for the experience and to have a good time.
love it. Well, I hope you get back to it,
Thank
because
you.
I personally, I love ballroom. I'm always talking to Anya about it because, like, she's always preaching the ballroom.
Yeah,
Like,
I
"Hey,
heard of her first in ballroom, and then she did this like crossover, and I was like, oh my god, she's amazing.
yes, she really is, and she's all about that rumba life, which I love.
Yes.
That's one
Yeah.
of my favorite dances. Okay, so after the ballroom world, let's talk about what came next.
Yes, bachata happened completely by accident. Um, Brian Lee was like my former, like, still friends, but former partner for like a couple of years. And he taught at my studio. Like the studio that I was the receptionist at, I ended up buying with two partners. And so Brian was already a teacher there, and he had like a local group that they needed a rehearsal space. Um, so before I actually like bought it, we had made this like deal that they could practice on Sundays, and then I worked every Sunday, so I would just help. So it started out that he would ask like one thing, and I would help for like 1 minute, and then like it went to like 5 minutes, and then like 30 minutes, and then every single Sunday, like I was just always prepared to like work with his group. They were so great, and Brian was so great, and so they were working on bachata and salsa, and then but the trade-off was like the owner at the time was like, all right, they can practice for free, but like at our showcase they have to say that they're like the Elan formation team then. And I was like, all right. So then because of that they were like, all right, well let's do like a tango formation too. So um it ended up just every Sunday was one of the days I worked, and like we just kind of like formed this connection. And Brian and I would practice. He would also just happen to be there on the other days that I worked there, so we would just like practice moves that we would like learn, or that he would learn, or that he wanted to try. Um, and I just didn't even realize like how it happened. And then I started leading completely by accident too. Like one of the days, our group class in the ballroom studio didn't have enough leads, and the teacher was like, you're here. I need you to lead. And I was like, all right, whatever. Like I never took a formal class as a follow, so for me it was like whatever.
Yeah.
And so like that was like complete accident. And then that was just kind of like how that happened. Bachata, I always really liked it, but I was a super ballroom. I was like, ballroom's my life. But like all of a sudden, I would probably say within 6 months, I was super committed to this group that like didn't even have anything to do with me. I was like, this is like his group, but I was just they were so great. Brian was so great. The energy was so nice, and like I ended up taking some of the ballroom students and putting them in this group too. So it just kind of like happened by accident, but I didn't really fall in love with like social dancing bachata because I fell in love with dancing for performing. I've always had a strong connection to like performing in shows, and so I
Same.
love that they were working with like performing. It was a performing group, and so after that, we so some stuff happened with our studio. We ended up losing the studio, which was like super traumatic for me. But at some point, like as Brian started to figure out like where he wanted to go in his life, and I was figuring out like where I wanted to go with stuff. Once that studio closed, I had to kind of decide like, do I even have it in me to dance anymore? Because I was super depressed.
I'm sure.
I'm not like a depressive type person, but I like closed myself in my room for like months. I just cried.
Oh
My
my
mom was
God.
like super concerned. It was just I had given up my entire life to do this thing and it failed. And I think I wasn't ready for that. Like in my mind, I was like, it's gonna be great, it's gonna happen. And like there were circumstances that were out of our hands. So I think I was like, I do want to. And then one day I was like, all right, like, I don't feel like I fit in anywhere because even though I love ballroom and I love bachata and salsa, I never felt like I really belonged in either. I didn't feel like I fit in with the ballroom people, and I didn't feel at first that I really fit in with like the bachata and salsa people. I just kind of happened to be like this funny, friendly person that happened to be there and was like mediocre at best at anything that she was really doing. And that's just kind of like how I felt. And so I was like, I need to make like a place for myself. And I was like, I'm going to start my own company. And I was like, and if it's only ever me, if I'm the only person that ever dances in this company, then I'm okay with that. And that was kind of like my closure on losing the studio because that came about a year after we closed. So I was like, all right, like I want to do this and like if it's just me, then it's just me and like that's just how it's gonna have to be. And but I told myself from the beginning, like you have to be okay with that because otherwise if something happens, like business is up and you never know. Like if something
Yeah.
happens and it's just you, you'll be super depressed again. And I really didn't want to go back to like that dark place.
Wow. That's really, I mean, that's really inspiring that you were able to take the time for yourself and then to just build something for yourself. That I love that. I mean, I know it came out of a dark place, but I'm getting a little hoarse here. I don't know what's going on with my throat. But yeah, I find that really inspiring that you just said, you know what? I'm gonna do it myself. I'm gonna make a home for myself. And if people want to be part of it, cool. And if it's just me, cool, because I'm doing like I love that. And I hope that the women that are watching this take that as like the motivation, you know what I mean? Like maybe something doesn't work out for them, but they can take that and find what works for them and make it be. That's great.
Yeah.
I love that, Kat. Thank you for sharing that. I know it's not easy for us sometimes to talk about our dark times, and we all go through them.
Yeah.
Every
We all
dancer has
go
gone
through
through
them.
it. We've all been like doubting ourselves or am I good enough or do I want to keep doing we've all been in that headspace. So I think it's
Especially the last year and a half.
exactly right. So like I think it's really great for our viewers to hear that it doesn't need to be an end. There is a new beginning. You just got to find what works for you.
For
So
sure.
we're talking about you starting Ferocity. So the earliest video that I was able to find was this one here from the LA Bachata Festival in 2013.
Yes, that's when we were still wearing pants. We changed the costume after to wear skirts. Yeah, this was I will always love this piece. I just redid part of this piece. We technically debuted at a ballroom competition in October of 2012, But like Teresa and I were like, we don't like this video. So like it exists, but it's private.
Gotcha.
But
Gotcha. That's why I couldn't find it.
yes, correct. So like we did a lot of changes from October to this one. And then I think even a little bit more changes by the time we really felt comfortable with it. But when I started, I was ferocity for me, like it's just literally it's things that I like. So I like throwback music and I love 90s and pop and hip hop and stuff. And I love bachata, but I also love ballroom and like I'm definitely a fusion artist. So like this routine has like three different songs in it, three different genres. And I was like, yeah, just put it in one routine. And that's
I
just
love it.
a lot
Throw
of my
everything
routines in
at
the
it and see
beginning,
what
literally
sticks.
a lot of my routines in the beginning, I was like, I love Britney Spears. Put it in the beginning, and like that's how it always was. And I was like, I know some people did not like it. They didn't get it, and I was like, it's fine. Like I have to like it. I have to get it. And we had a lot of good times dancing this piece.
I love that you said that. Like, not everybody's gonna like it, but if you like it,
Yes,
you know what I mean? And I
has
think
to make
that's
you happy.
that's so important. I don't think a lot of people that want to perform understand that, right? Like, or choreographers, when you put something out, there's never going to be anything that everybody loves, right? Art is
Correct.
subjective.
Yes.
But if you, as an artist, love what you're putting out there and you enjoy doing it within your performance, then no matter what it is, the audience will love it because they'll get that energy, which is something I don't think people that don't perform don't understand, that relationship between
Correct.
the artist and the audience,
Yes.
you know? So, like, I mean, I can't hear the music right now. Nobody can because I'd rather hear you talking. So I mute you too. But I mean, you can just tell watching, you're having the time of your lives.
Yeah, it was this piece, like when we retired it in the beginning, I was so sad because I had so much fun dancing this one. It's like it's still my favorite piece ever.
Really?
Yeah.
I love, there's always that one that just always sticks with your heart
Yes.
and just makes you be like, oh, I miss that. I love that.
Yes,
Was
for
that the
sure.
first one that you did that was your own choreography?
Yes.
Love it. Love it. Well, here's the next one coming up right here. Your group has
Oh,
grown.
yeah.
We are
Yeah,
now
so
a
this is
larger
actually,
group.
yeah, this is literally the order that it happened. So it was Teresa and I, and then we used to practice in like random little places, and then people just kind of would ask me, and I didn't think about having auditions because I mean, and I'm very upfront about this. I mean, my self-esteem was like super low, and I was like, no one's gonna want to be a part of this. And Teresa was already my friend, and I was like, oh, she just wants to do it because like she's my friend. And so like these other girls, the blonde girl in the back, I knew from ballroom. She was also taking lessons with Jenya, and then Bielka on the right straight up like came up to me and she was like, I want to audition. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, that's a thing. And so then I had to like really think about it. So then like we did auditions and I was like, basically whoever I had at the time dictated the routine. So I started with the same gender because I had one dancer and it was, same gender. And then I had a bunch of lady dancers. So then we did a ladies piece. And this one started with Britney Spears, who's, one of my favorites.
Okay.
So this was a lot of fun too. And then this was also, I believe, at my first event that I hosted.
I
So it's
love
super
it.
special.
Talk to me about being a director.
Being a director is, I think, super enjoyable. It's also like super difficult. I think that most of the time when we like start, we just think about, oh, like I really want to dance, and you see yourself as a dancer. And I always saw myself as performing and directing, but like always being a part of it.
Mhm.
And I think like the more dancers I got, at some point I was like, oh, like I can't perform all the time because that takes my students out of like the pieces. And so when I stopped performing so much with my teens, because I used to do every piece with them, is really when I feel like I became more of like a director and less of a dancer. Um,
Okay.
but it's like interesting, like where in one aspect I do miss performing myself and being like that catalyst that tells a story. When you're kind of like in the director's seat, you really get to make sure that you tell the story because you can see all those angles from not just being like front and center and doing it. So I think I really enjoy it. For me, the people that end up coming here, I always consider myself so lucky. I get lots of different personalities, but we usually tend to have a very similar, I would say, thing that connects us, which is like a need, not a need to like belong as far as like to say like in society, but just like a need to have a place that's ours and that we can be ourselves without feeling like we have to conform to anybody's standards. And I feel like that energy is what my favorite thing is about just being in Frosty and being a director, is that I also get to try as much as I can to maintain that energy, maintain the positivity, and maintain some sort of, inclusivity, and trying to instill those values as much as I can.
I just wanted to show this clip real quick because you did mention, that you went from pants
There you go, to
to
skirts.
skirts. It's the evolution.
Yes, we were like, yeah, the pants don't work. Let's do this. Because at one point, the pants almost fell. They were so heavy. I was like, we
Oh my
can't have
god.
that.
Well, they're fringe pants, right?
You
So,
know, so then
like,
we
that
did fringe
definitely
tops.
add weight. And now you put on a fringe dress.
There you go.
Keeping the fringe theme. I love it. I love it. Do you have a preference in terms of choreographing, like style? Like, do you prefer to do a ladies piece? Do you like more doing the co-ed pieces? Do you have a favorite, or is it just the
No,
process is the process?
I yeah, I like I tend to go by the song.
Okay.
So whatever the song is that I hear, I can usually tell if I specifically feel footwork or co-ed.
Okay.
But no, I mean I enjoy choreographing everything pretty much equally.
You had mentioned earlier that when you started, when you and the other guys at the studio had partnered up and you were helping their teams, you had mentioned formation teams,
Hmm.
right? And a lot of people that aren't in ballroom don't really know what that means. So, can you talk about that and how formation teams help prepare you for doing choreography for teams? Because I know there's a connection between the two for sure. So, I'd love people to know about that.
Yeah, the first thing I actually ever did in ballroom, like publicly, was actual formation team. It was three couples, and it was just that our boss needed help for like this thing that he wanted to do, and like I'd never done anything, and my best friend CJ and I were like asked, and we were like, okay, like it'll be fine, and we had no idea what we were getting into. Um, so like formation teams is kind of like the way that you see things now, but instead of like staying in the same spot all the time, you include formation changes and almost thinking of the choreography from three dimensionals instead of just the front. So you have to think of the choreography from all angles. Like if they see you from the top or the side or the back, what are the lines? What are the angles and all these things? Um, and so in ballroom, I feel like that they actually become big, and they're usually bigger, I believe, in like standard, like the ballroom dances. Like those are at least the ones that draw people's attention the most. Like when people do like waltz and affirmation or stuff like that, and just like the crazy changes and like the seamless transitions. And they definitely help for choreography because I mean it's something that I still get. I'm trying to still work on myself, but formation changes and things like that are what really kind of like elevate your piece to the next level. And
Absolutely.
it's a whole other mindset. There's one thing is to choreograph, but it's a whole other to then choreograph transitional changes, and that's like completely different. So like I tend to do all the choreography first, and then later I'll go back and do the formation stuff, because for me, like, I need to kind of see the whole thing first before I add those changes into it. But like it's always so nice to see like it really, really changes a piece. No matter how easy or difficult it is, like anytime you add these changes in it, these
Mhm.
formations and things, that just elevates that piece to a whole other level.
I love that you said that because you already answered my next question. I was going to ask you, when you choreograph, do you start with choreography and then do formations? Because everyone's different.
Yes.
I've noticed over time, like personally for myself, I've started to do choreography with the formations happening. If I know how many couples I have,
Right.
I visualize it that way.
Right.
But again, like you said, it really depends
Yes.
on what it is, but you're 1,000% right. What transitions or formations do for a piece, it just takes it to a whole nother level.
For sure.
Now, I didn't find a lot of solo work of yours, but I did find one.
Oh yes. Oh my God. I had like a nervous breakdown before this. Yeah. So
Talk to me.
I only started solo in 2018, which was this year, I think, or maybe the year after this.
This was
Um,
2017, actually. This was the
uh,
LA
so
Bachata Kizomba Festival, September 2017.
So I did the solo for my 5 year anniversary, and then it was supposed to just be like that, and then I ended up competing it. So I worked on it all year until next year to compete at the Latin Dance Cup. But I started mainly, so like I used to dance all my pieces, like I was telling you, and then a lot of time passed by, and then like I lost my dad. I gained a lot of weight back that I had previously lost. So like on top of me just actually not performing because I wanted my students to have the chance, my self-esteem just took a big hit. And like when you change weight, your dancing changes because your center changes, and like
Mhm.
if you didn't keep up with doing what you were doing, then it almost feels like you're starting all over again.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
when even though I wanted to dance again, I just couldn't get myself to do it. So it'd been 2 years, I think, at this point, almost 2 years. And I was like super emo like around my anniversary. And I was like, I want to do this thing. And like, I wanted to do it for myself, but I didn't tell anybody because I was like, if I fail, like if I chicken out, I don't want to have anyone know that there was something supposed to happen. And then I had brought in a coach, and his name is Isidro, who's one of my best friends now, my brother Isidro from California. And he was the only person I told, and like I broke down crying, and I was like, I don't
Oh,
think I can do it. And I told him, I know in my heart that if I don't do it, I'm never going to perform again. I was like, and it's going to break me because that's the whole
oh,
reason that I started. And I knew it. Like, I knew that, like, it's kind of like that when I told you that I had to make that decision when I decided to start Ferocity. It'd been 5 years, and I started this performing company because I wanted to perform. But out of the 5 years, it'd been like 2 years almost that I had stopped performing.
yeah.
And I told him, I was like, I know that if I don't do it, I'm not going to be able to recover. And so at the 5 year anniversary, I didn't even have a costume. I wore like the outfit that I was wearing all night. And I told Emerson, I was like, here's this song. And like, God bless his soul, but for whatever reason, it took him forever to play the song. So I'm standing there in complete silence, and like, I'm shaking. I'm shaking so
Oh,
bad. It takes him forever to hit play, long
that's the
enough for me
worst.
to be like, I'm going to tell him that forget it. I'm going to tell him forget it. And then the music starts. And then I just like went for it. So, solo dancing was kind of my way of trying to kind of find some confidence in my own dancing again, and just kind of like having something that was just for me, because I feel like as a director you spend a lot of time just doing things that are for other people, focusing on others, and then you kind of like get lost. Even though it's your vision, you still get lost in like your own individual passion. Um, and so the solo thing was like, I was like, this is for me. Like, I work on this. I have to take time now for myself only to work on this. And then I decided to like compete it. Like, massive anxiety attacks all over the place, but like I saw it through, and like I was really happy that I did that. So I really enjoy dancing by myself now.
I think I could be wrong. And if someone who's watching knows that I'm wrong, please correct me. But I don't think bachata solos were really a thing before you started doing them.
I don't know. In the competitions they were.
I'm
Um,
trying to remember when they started in competition because it took a while for bachata solos to become a thing.
yeah, I mean, I think people did them. Maybe they weren't like super popular, but like Georgette definitely was doing solos before me. I remember because like I booked her, and like I'd never even thought to ask about a show, and mainly because of that, I think everyone's like, oh, like solos and like teen or couples and teens and stuff like that. And so like there's definitely people. I think people have had solos. Definitely, I would say in salsa, soloist was like a much bigger thing.
Oh,
But,
absolutely.
but generally speaking, salsa is just, I would say, much older and much, they've gone through this process already where like
Yeah.
now, it's like one of the biggest divisions is a solo anything in a competition in salsa. But yeah, like the year that I competed, there was like four of us, I think. And then the year after though, there were like 18.
Exactly. Like it was the beginning stages, but you're right.
At least in
Georgette has been
competition, yeah.
performing bachata solo for a very long time,
Yep.
and she's freaking amazing at it.
Yes, the
She's
queen.
somebody I
J
would
Jet,
love to have on the show for
J
sure.
Jet, J Jet. I love her.
She's amazing, absolutely amazing. So your team, you've already mentioned the competition circuit, right? You've been taking your team to the competitions for quite some time now,
Yeah, we started in 2015.
and this was you guys at Euroson. This is your
Yes.
professional company.
This is the first time we competed pro. It was
Talk to
that was
me
like
about.
it was a big learning year. I think 2015 when we started was like kind of like a make it or break it for me as far as competitions and continuing ferocity period because and I'm going to talk about my dad a lot just because my dad is a big reason why ferocity is even around still.
Mhm.
But my dad passed away in December of 2014, and my competition team was supposed to start January of 2015. And so, like, he passed away literally like December 23rd, like 7 or 8 days before the end of the year. And I
Okay.
was just super depressed. I mean, like, my dad was like my person. So for me, it was like the first time ever that I stopped going to my studio. I didn't go for a month. I
Oh
told
my
them
God.
I was like, we need to delay this until February. I just physically didn't, I couldn't do it. But also, like, my heart was just not in it. And I had to, like, think about it. I was like, I don't even know if I can dance anymore because half my heart just left.
Wow.
And I don't know if I have any more, like, left to give. So that first year was kind of like, all right. And I told them, I was like, if you're willing to be patient and like work on this with me, then like I'm gonna push and I'm gonna do my best. I was like, but I don't know how anything is gonna go, and like it's I'm just coming from such a raw place. But I think probably like now when I look back at it, working on these we did two pieces that year, which was I took a couple and then I took the team. I think the process of working on these things allowed me to really kind of be very emotional because our piece just happened to be super emotional that year. And I
Mhm.
got a lot of like emotions out. And so, but I always have like a weird reason of why I do competitions. I don't do competitions to win. It's always like nice when you place or get a ribbon or trophy and stuff. But for me, the competitions are different. I think because I don't come from like a rich household and I don't have like rich friends or anything. I had a very expensive hobby that I like to do, which was ballroom dancing. And then even like my company too, like we're all adults, but everyone tends to have some similar version of the same story, which is that someone in your life at some point has criticized you for the money that you spend, for the time that you spend, for all the
Mhm.
stuff that you buy. Why do you do this? This is ridiculous. What are you trying to? I mean, so you spend so much of your life trying to defend what you love as a dancer that
Mhm.
I wanted to go somewhere, and that's what I was hoping for. I was like, I want to go somewhere to replenish how I feel and to kind of like revalidate my feelings. And so when we went to the first competition we ever went to was Eurozone, which was that one, but we went in 2015 for the first time and then Latin Cup later that year. And it was just like for me, I go because I need like this annual like replenishing of my inspiration to be surrounded by people who are honestly just as crazy as you are, that spend just the same amount of time, that sacrifice everything just like you do. So it's
Mhm.
being in a place with everyone that's doing the exact same thing that you do, where you don't have to explain at all why you're there and why you're doing what you're doing because everyone's doing the same. And like at Latin Cup, it was like our first Latin Cup, it was like the most inspirational thing for me because I'm crazy about practice. So we would practice like 1.5 hours or 2 hours on and off, and then we would go back, 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 back. So whether we were in the ballroom at like 7 p.m. or 3 in the morning, there was always someone there doing the exact same thing that we were doing.
Yep.
And it's just like I feel like everyone at some point, even if you don't actually compete, everyone at some point should just go to a competition and just feel that energy because even social dancers, like everyone gets this criticism at some point. Why do you take classes? Why do you spend this money? Why you spend all your time doing this? Like just constant criticism. And like when you go to these places and you're surrounded by like so many people that sacrifice just as much, if not more than you, that's just that's worth all the work from the entire year.
I love that. I also, I mean, I know it's not talked about a lot in this business, and it should be more. I do appreciate the fact that you're saying, you took the time to mourn. You said this is what I need, and you did that for yourself before you got back to pushing the team and getting them ready for competition. Because I think a lot of people forget that as dancers, we're not just artists, we're athletes, you know what I mean? And we do need to take care of ourselves. And a lot of the time we don't,
Correct.
right? Like
We're
like
the
think
worst
about it.
at taking
How
care of
many
ourselves.
times have you performed sick or injured or whatever. We just don't.
Not anymore because of COVID. We learned.
I know, right? We all learn.
We
But
learned.
but you did that beforehand. You
Yeah.
took the moment and you said, "Look, this is what I need. I'm not in a place to be the best version of myself for you." So like you were putting yourself first, but also putting your dancers first at the same time. And I don't think a lot of people get that, that's
Yeah.
something that we as artists have to deal with.
Yeah. And I hope like, so I'll tell you, like when my dad passed, the first feeling that I felt was immense guilt. I actually felt the guilt. He got diagnosed with kidney cancer in August of 2014, and he passed away just a few months later. But like the minute that I kind of realized that like we weren't gonna win this battle, I felt so guilty because
Oh,
for most of the time that I'd been dancing, I put everyone else ahead of myself. I would put my coach ahead of myself. I put my students ahead of myself. And all my free time was in the studio. And then when my dad got sick, the first thing I thought about was all the time that I didn't spend with my parents.
don't cry. Don't cry. Your makeup looks flawless. Don't cry. I'm going to
I'm
start
putting a spray on
crying.
my face in case this happens. um,
I'm
but
already getting a little emotional over here. I can't.
yeah, I spent a lot of time feeling, and I think that's why I needed a month off because I felt really guilty being at the studio. I felt, I said, what ended up being my dad's last few years, I spent completely away from my house. And so I think that really helped me. And it's also a lesson that I continue to take is that you really do have to put yourself first because nothing can prepare you for the guilt like that, what that
Yeah.
feels like. Because instantly you start realizing like, wow, and it could be even if you don't dance, if you spend all your time like just with your friends or all your times doing other things or all your time traveling and then like people are so lucky like if you still have like both your parents or one of your parents like you're so lucky and like even now I have to like try to scale back and be like man like I still have my mom like I need to make sure I don't repeat the same mistakes that I made before and so I really needed it mainly because I had to take time to like not feel guilty,
Yeah.
because he was at the same time the one pushing me to make my dreams come true and he's the reason I even got the studio because like he had gifted me a car and paid it with like his like retirement money and then he sold that car so that I could get the money to make my studio.
Oh my
So
God.
like he was the one pushing me all along, but like I had to take the time to like not just grieve my dad, but like not feel, like complete crap going back to the studio again and trying to like pick up that same pace that I'd had.
Well, let's make it a little bit of a happier conversation for a second. Let's turn the tide. This
Oh
is
my
you.
God, my husband.
I mean, talk about a happy moment getting to dance with Danny J.
Honestly, this whole night, not just because of Danny J, but this whole night, I will never forget this night. I don't know what it was, but like the vibe and the energy this particular night was amazing. Like all my students that went, we talked about it for months. We still talk about it. Like how much fun this night was. And then of course my husband, Danny J, I always call myself Katty J.
Nice.
But like I love his music. I've done so many choreographies to Danny J songs. And so
Yes.
like dancing to this was like like the
Dream
best
come
moment in
true.
my life.
Yep.
Yeah.
These are the things that we all like live for and you pray
Yes.
for when you listen to their songs. You're like, man, I would just love.
Literally. I was like, oh my God, best day ever.
And you're like kind of geeking out a little bit inside. You're like fangirling because you
Not even,
love
I mean,
them.
not even on a private scale. Like I think everyone that was there could tell, like, oh my God, Kat's loving this.
Well, the smile on your face was like huge. You look like
Oh,
you're
I
having
was
so much.
smiling for like days.
I have this video here of a more recent Latin Cup. This is your amateur team.
Yes, this was in Colombia.
Wow. I remember when the Lion Cup used to be in Miami. Now it's in Colombia.
Yeah, this was the first time that they put it in Colombia. That was a whole interesting experience. I think I'd been very used to it being here because when we started, it's been here the whole time.
Yep.
And so, like, you kind of get used to the whole experience. Like, it changed once when I went from Miami to Orlando, and then it changed when I went to Colombia. But like that was like a huge change. I feel like Miami to Orlando was like a little change, like you didn't have the beach anymore and stuff. but it was still like here.
Hmm.
But when I went to Colombia, I was like, wow, like that was crazy. But it was also like I completely understand why they do it because there were so many teams and so many dancers that I got to see that we wouldn't have seen here
Yeah.
because they can't get in because of the visa issue. And to see a city that was so supportive of this competition that they allowed the organization to do so many things and like use so many of like the structures in the city to do this was like amazing. And there was like news coverage and like this amazing like opening ceremony and like it was like really cool.
Talk to me. So we saw the footage of your pro team, right,
Mhm.
competing. Amateur teams are a whole other experience. I mean, they're dance babies, if you will. Um, do you approach working with an amateur team differently than you do with a pro team?
Not really. So I don't choreograph based on level. I choreograph based on the song. So whatever the song tells me to do, you're gonna do it. Whether it's really hard or like really easy, the song just kind of dictates for me. So in my head, I try not to segment based on like these like levels or these labels. And I think mainly for me, it's more of a level change of responsibility. I feel like a professional dancer or a representative of a professional company has a lot more responsibility than an amateur dancer might.
Mhm.
But I generally tend to treat almost everybody like the same. I just try to make sure that they're challenged, make sure that they grow, make sure that they're getting better. So yeah, I mean, like, and honestly, I only had a pro team starting in 2017. So before that, my main focus and my main competition group was the amateur team.
Wow. I love it. It's just so funny because when you're working with amateurs, like you want to challenge them, but you don't want to scare them off. So
Right.
like it's tiptoeing that fine line of pushing your students to be better because
Yeah.
they're there to grow, but
Right.
at the same time, you don't want them to be like, "Oh my god, I can never do this," and like go running for the door.
Yeah, I tend to have like conversations with like the higher level teams right at the beginning of the year about like what's gonna happen and like to kind of just trust the process and to trust me. And
That's the process. That's
luckily
such a Philly thing to say right now.
it is, but it's I basically just tell them like, listen, like trust me, it's not always gonna be easy. Sometimes it's gonna be really, really hard. Can't guarantee that you won't cry at some point, but it's not gonna be because of me. I was like, it's just that dance is gonna push you, just
Yep.
because you're gonna want to push yourself. But I just tell them like things are gonna change throughout the year. You gotta just trust the process. And mainly when I tell any of my students, when they start, regardless of how long they've been dancing, I say you have to be here because you love the
Yeah,
process of learning to dance and not for any other reason. I was like, you can't
absolutely.
come here just because you want to compete, or you can't come here just because you want to like perform. Like these are things that we may end up doing. And then of course last year was severely tested, right? But I told
For
them
sure.
you have to be here because I told them I was like because when I started dancing, I fell in love with dance, with learning dance, and that it's never ending, and that I have such a high respect for what it is
Mhm.
that it's a lifelong thing for me. And I knew right away. And I was like, and you have to be here because even if it's not lifelong for you, you have to be here because you love to learn, because your director loves learning dance and what dance is. And so, like, generally, I feel like it's a good conversation to have. And, like, then when things get hard, it's like, all right, we were kind of ready for this
Yeah.
earlier.
I love that you talked about in the very beginning about your skills with leading, right? I don't think a lot of people understand how hard it is to lead, number one. And props to all our male counterparts, that give us awesome social dances because they do. They have to think so far ahead and make it seamless so that we're enjoying it. So leading is definitely hard. Um, but you make it seem so effortless. And I don't know if it's because of the training that you have, but I found this video, a recent one.
Oh, yeah. This is like last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it just got posted. And here you are at a concert. Her costume is gorgeous, but I love that your top is all sparkled out.
Thanks. I did that myself.
Girl, I'm all about the self stoning. Let's
Yeah.
go. Rhinestone party. Just give me a bottle of wine, a good show to binge, and I'm ready to go.
Yes.
But I mean, this just shows what an incredible lead you are. I
Thank
mean,
you.
What do you feel as a lead?
So it's funny because when I started co-ed, and obviously when I started with my teacher, I danced as a follow. Um, and I love it. I think it's a lot of fun. But me personally, I never considered myself like a feminine dancer or like a beautiful dancer or like a flowy dancer. I think that the words I use for myself tend to be more like strong or like bold or like, my favorite word like fierce,
Of
so like
course.
I think that because my words that I use to like reflect myself or what I would like to be as a dancer, they're what's the word? They're like ambiguous or like they're not specific to a role.
Yes.
Just as how they're like not really specific to like a gender. These are just like the things that I want to portray. And for me, like when I lead, I'm much more comfortable. I'm much more comfortable. And I don't really even know when that happened. I think I used to be really terrified of leading. When I started my company and I had to do like my first co-ed piece, I was like pooping myself. I was like, oh my God, like I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, who am I? Like, and I was you always saw couples. You always
Yeah.
saw couples. There was not really like, or if there was like a single director, most of the ones that I at least remember seeing at the time, they were male instructors.
Yep.
Um, and so then I was like, man, like, can I do it? And like, Brian Lee was the first person to be like, yeah, you can do it. And then I was like, you're full of shit. Oh, you're my friend. You have to say that.
Don't
But
worry,
like,
we're good to curse. This is YouTube
literally,
and Facebook. We're
yeah,
fine.
sorry.
We're not on
Um,
PBS. The FCC won't come after me. We're good.
yeah. So like, yeah, I mean, I just think probably through a lot of practice and then also just when I got to help in that one class, I was like a beginner level bachata class and it was like 4 weeks that I helped out. So it wasn't like a huge thing, but I was able to more accurately explain to people how I specifically needed something led for me to
Hmm.
do what they wanted me to do. And that was something that I felt like as a follow, like I wasn't 100% sure how to explain. But once I started leading, I was like, oh, I understand because this, and that. And yeah, I don't know. Like I love leading. I definitely love leading a lot more than following as far as performing, I think.
Hmm.
Um, but then again, it could just, I don't know. I think I love it all. I just love to perform, period. But I definitely really enjoy leading and being able to do like my own pieces and stuff.
I love it. And I think one of the things that I really love about you is that you are doing it all on your own. We see videos or clips, that you post of you teaching workshops all over, and you don't need no man's. You're teaching solo. And and I wish more people would understand that we female artists are actually capable of doing that. I was in New York yesterday for training and I ran into one of my dear friends and she and I were just talking about, her classes and how they're going. And she's like an icon in her industry. And she actually told me that she had gone out social dancing the other night and some gentleman came up to her and said, I'll come and assist you in your classes because how can you do it on your own? And I was like, did you smack him? Because you've been doing it forever. And it's very infuriating to see that this is the mentality in our industry because it shouldn't be. You are more than capable of leading and following and teaching both sides of it. Nobody ever questions our male counterparts if they can teach a class solo and show the girls part. It's
Right.
never a question. But for us women, it's like, wait, you're going to teach alone? But who are you going to demo with? Like, how are you? And it's like, no, this is what we do. And I think you're a great example of that because you've been doing it on your own. So, like, when people are like, oh, but she needs to go, I'm like, no, they don't. Look at Kat. Solo. And she crushing it. So, like, I thank you for that because it is an example for a lot of us women that we don't need a man by our side to make it in this business. We're more than capable as artists to do it on your own, to do it on our own. And I think you really have led by example with this, whether it's your company or your classes, you just kind of took the reins. You handle everything for your studio yourself, right? I mean, you handle the company, you handle the choreography, You pick the music, you do the costumes, right?
Yeah.
It's all you. All you. Speaking of ferocity, there's this really cool trailer that you posted, and
Oh
I'm
my
gonna
gosh.
show it.
Oh my gosh. What is? Oh, I love this.
Oh no.
This was for our 9-year anniversary. I wanted everyone to be in it somehow, and it
I
was for
love it. I love
COVID.
that you were productive during the COVID time, and you made it work for your dancers, which was just really great.
Thank you. Yeah, I love this was so fun. We did all of this in like a day. And because of COVID, like we had to be like, all right, you're in here 15 minutes, get out. Next group come in 15 minutes. And like, go outside and breathe some oxygen away from each other. But we were really lucky. I think I'm super grateful for the students I had last year for
Hmm.
through COVID, but I'm also really grateful for the ones that I have this year because I'm very transparent with my students, and so at auditions I was very very upfront and very very clear because my mom is high risk because she's older, and she's not vaccinated, and so I was like, I said you have to understand that we don't know what 2021 is going to look like as far as COVID goes.
Hmm.
And I don't know if there's going to be performances, and you have to be okay with everything being on video because we don't know. Like as of December of 2020, things were a hot mess still, So it was really fun, and this was just like super special to get to do this, and like I think we had almost everyone in the company participate in this one, so it was like
I
really
love it.
special.
It's very cool. And then, for those of us watching, it's like you're sitting there going, so who is that under the mask? And which
Yeah,
person? Because it's, all you're seeing are the eyes and the hair whip. So, like, unless you
yeah,
really know who the dancer is, you're going to be like, wait, who was that? Like, wait a minute, go
yeah.
back. But I love it. I heard somebody say the other day, they were like, by the time COVID is over, there's going to be a lot of breakups because people have only seen each other from the eyes up. So when they see the
Right.
whole face, it's going to be like, oh, you bye. And I was like, that's horrible, but it's kind of
Oh
true.
my goodness.
So tell me, what is happening next for you? What do you
I
have
mean,
in the pipeline?
honestly, I think mainly for me this year is I'm considering more of like a training year. Like we've started performing again, little by little, practicing a lot, just kind of getting ready. But like next year is my 10-year anniversary, so I think I want to really make sure that what we're working on this year at least shows progress and growth in every dancer. But like the professionals, our focus is really getting ready for like next year and just training and trying to bond again, because last year that was kind of bonding is really important to me as a company, and last year that was kind of taken from us because it just wasn't safe to do anything. So trying to kind of like spend more time getting to know the students, having the students get to know each other, other than just the teams that they're on.
Mhm.
Just trying to do it as safe as possible, and just trying to, be as fierce as we can.
Yes. Yes, 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 for sure. For those of you that have been watching, you can see on the bottom of the screen, we've had Kat's information. You can follow Ferocity Dance Company at Ferocity Dance on Facebook and Instagram. They have their website, ferocitydance.com. Is there anything else that you want to plug or?
No, I would just say show some kindness to your dancers. Everyone's been going through some stuff, um, and yeah. Did you have another question for me or no?
I do, but I just wanted to ask also, is your studio actually open for group classes right now?
Yes, we're open.
Okay, cool. And they can get that information on the website, right?
Yes, everything's on there.
Perfect. Well, before I do let you go, as you said, I have one more question for you. It's a little loaded, but that's why you get it earlier. If there was one piece of advice you could give to women who want to make it in the dance industry, what would that be?
I would say that as women, you spend most of your life being told what you can and can't do, or what you should or shouldn't do. You're told you're too fat or too skinny or not pretty enough or too pretty or you shouldn't wear this and all this stuff. And whether you realize it or not, these things tend to like live in some like part of our head, whether you're aware of it or
Mhm.
not. And I would say don't be afraid to make your own place for yourself. That if you go somewhere and you really love something, make your own place for yourself there. Like that's what I did, and be okay with it being just you. But don't be afraid to make a space for yourself because everybody belongs in this world.
I love that. And I felt that. Oh my God. Thank you, Kat. That was
Thank
amazing.
you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank
We got
you.
through a lot of material. I loved it. You were just a fabulous guest, fierce as always.
Thank
And
you.
I will hopefully see you soon in person.
Yeah, hopefully.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. I'll
Hopefully.
be making
Yes.
my way down south soon. So try to make
Yeah.
my way down 95 to the
There you
DMV
go.
area. So I'll give you a call. Everyone, thank you again for joining us today. Join me next week for my season 1 finale, if you will. Episode 22 will be Karel Flores. So
Yeah.
thank you guys for tuning in. Once again, this is Women of Dance. I'm your host, Sharonne Vinokurov, and I'll see you all next week. Bye.